can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you all observing the silence as you come in. For those who don't know, the first Saturday of every month, we do a half day of silent retreat. So it starts at 8 a.m. and goes until noon. So they're observing silence for the 4 hours, and it's nice for them to, when you all start to come in at around 10:30 or so for the 11 o'clock class, to continue the silence so they're not disrupted with, the chaos of all of you showing up to meditation. But so I appreciate you observing the silence so they can continue their retreat silently. So thank you. Anyone here for the first time today? Well, what brings you here?
Meeting with someone here.
Nice. Are they here? Not yet. That's I mean, maybe you were separated, but I don't know. Yeah, nice. Well, I'm glad you're here, and if they show up, great. If not, their loss, or maybe they're gain. Maybe you'll hate it, Who knows? Well, welcome. Yeah. Anybody else first time here? Those of you who keep showing up, why do you show up? Why show up here?
Meditation.
Meditation.
Yes.
Yes. What else?
Moment of peace.
Moment of peace.
I've been having to run away from situations for a very long time. And it's like kind of shifting a big battleship. And every time I calm and do something, that battleship shifts a little bit so that I react in a little bit different way, in
Yeah.
a positive way to situations.
Yeah. Learning, cultivating, training the mind to begin to react to things differently outside of here. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
Just because.
Just because. Yes.
I was going to say exactly what he said. That was a well said way to put it.
Yeah.
The battleship reference.
Yeah. Just to kind of reset our framework. What else?
Helps me meet my life right where it is.
Yep.
It's a place where I can be reverent and quiet.
Reverent and quiet.
Connection to
Community.
community. I always feel lighter when I leave here.
Yeah.
I enjoy the meditation and I enjoy the lessons and hearing what everyone else has to say, but there's something I thought about this in depth that reminds me, and I grew up Catholic, it's that routine, it's settling in with other people, and I feel like it makes me happy. It feels really comfortable, like super deep inside.
For sure. Thank you. Yeah.
I just like being here.
Like being here. Yeah, me too. I keep showing up. I keep hoping someday none of you will show up and then I can just go to sleep. But if you're all going to show up, I might as well show up, Yeah. Anybody else want to share before we start meditation practice? It's an important thing, whether you share it or not. As you all know, many of you know, I like to ask that every so often, usually once every few weeks, as reminders, not just for those who might be new, but for you to always come back to what I was taught really as that initial intention. If you think about the reason that led you to a place like this, and it doesn't matter, I don't mean necessarily here, Dharma Bum Temple, but a place like this, meaning looking for some sort of spiritual path, looking for some meditation practice, looking for some community, whatever it is, whatever that original intention was that led you to begin something like this. Always, I find it important to come back to reflect on that, because as you go through your journey, as you go through your days and your weeks and your months and your years and all your adventures, you're going to be challenged. You're going to face a world that is cruel, that is harsh, that is throwing everything at you, and it's going to be difficult. And there's times for many where, you know, you might question, why am I even doing this? And again, this has nothing to do with this place. As you all know, I don't really care where you are, but don't take that the wrong way. But always come back to the original reason why you started, because as that is challenged and as that is really throwing kind of difficulty your way, it helps to reflect on that and say, okay, this is why. This is why I'm doing this practice. And if you can come back to that, those moments that are difficult for you, it gives you a little more motivation, a little more inspiration to say, okay, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop this path and this practice, again, regardless of where it is. Because, you know, again, and also for those who are new, and by new, I mean, you know, within the first 10 years, just because you've been doing this for 3 months doesn't automatically mean that all of a sudden your life is going to drastically change. For many people, I always share that when you begin this practice, it might actually make life a little more difficult at first, because you start to ponder your thoughts and your words and your actions and your behaviors outside of places like this. And you're like, oh, maybe I am the reason I'm so miserable and depressed all day long. And when we start to take that accountability on our own shoulders and our own hearts and our own minds, it kind of holds up that mirror that I'm always talking about that says, okay, what can I do in my life and my thoughts and my words and my actions to be more at peace outside of here? So always good to reflect on those things. So, yeah, and Cinda shared, meditation helps me stay grounded. All right, so we'll start with the meditation practice. A couple things to tell you for those who might be new or sitting for the first time. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. You're not trying to empty your thoughts. You're not trying to stop your mind. You're not trying to think nothing. Your mind will continue to race. I'll say things periodically to either wake you up because you've fallen asleep or remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to present moment. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you are seated, also just trying to sit up straight if comfortable, relaxing the shoulders. If you need to move, simply move. Movement doesn't make you a bad meditator, just means you need to move. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, Settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, feel them fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return in attention, focus to the breath. learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, wanting nothing but to sit and breathe. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from your practice, just sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how you sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. And what we realize from this practice is this is our entire life. Every day, things happen. We react. More stuff happens. More reactions. All we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't necessarily fix that. It helps you become aware of your life that's a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess so you can begin to make changes in your life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's just sitting, breathing, becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do in each moment. And that's it. We spend so much time trying to fix, change, control, manipulate everybody outside of us, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. So much time focused on the actions of others. And I'm not suggesting that the actions of others are not important, nor that they do not have an impact on us. They do. And we should not ignore it. But this practice specifically is not about changing what others do. This is about working on you. So when you engage in the world and one that you want to see change happen and occur, you do it from a place of loving kindness and compassion, not from a place of hatred and anger. It's easy to sit and judge and critique and blame everything on everybody else. But everyone else didn't create every problem in your life. We have to own a lot of those. And that's from our own mind, our own thoughts, our own words, and our own actions. And that's what this practice is focused on. It's why it's so difficult. Because as I said earlier, it really requires us, the practice, to hold up a mirror and look at, what do I think? What do I say? And what do I do all day long? And how is that impacting my mental, emotional health and well-being? Yeah, this is a Buddhist temple. Most people don't come here to learn about Buddhism. They come here because they're stressed out, they're angry, they're stressed, they're anxious, they're depressed, they're sad, they're lonely. That has nothing to do with religion or philosophy or spiritual practice. It has to do with being happy. People ask me all the time why I think people come here, and I say the number one reason I think people come here is, one, they're looking for a community. They're looking for a place they can feel comfortable. But ultimately, they just want to be happier and more peaceful throughout their day. And for whatever reason, haven't been able to settle in that most of their lives. So for me, this practice is being honest and real and very authentic and genuine with who you are and saying, okay, can I work on creating change in my life? And how will that impact my life and those around me? And like I said earlier, that's a practice. It takes time. It's not a quick fix. It's not a 6-week course. It's not all of a sudden you've mastered it and moved on. Every day of your life, you will face challenges. That's the very first thing the Buddha taught. Life is filled with dukkha, suffering, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction. And too often people skip that. And they think, well, I'm over that. I want to move on from that. But we're not looking at that long enough. Yes, the second noble truth is the cause, our greed, our anger, and our ignorance, craving, desiring, wanting more, angry at the way the world is, angry at the way people treated us, angry at the way we responded to things. And the ignorance is ignoring reality, meaning we think we're actually correct with all of our views. We roam around thinking that our views and our perceptions of reality are correct very often. Unless some of you roam around all day long thinking you're wrong all day long, but most people don't. Right? So those first 2 steps on the Four Noble Truths are important to understand. We are going to experience difficulty, discomfort, angst, dissatisfaction every day. It doesn't mean all of life sucks. There's lots of joy and happiness and wonderful things, but most of the time we don't focus on those. But it's important to understand when we do focus on them, why are we struggling? Where is it coming from? And it is your mind. That's it. And most people don't want to sit with their mind. They try to escape from it. Lots of healthy escapes, lots of unhealthy escapes. We don't have enough time this morning to get into all of those. But the nature of this practice is to get to know your mind and how it impacts you. So with that, I'll pause. Always prefer really just responding to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. To those are joining virtually again. Actually, I don't think I said welcome earlier. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. Feel free to say hello in the chat box. There's a screen somewhere. If you have any questions, put them there. I'll do my best to respond. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
My mom is a devout Catholic, and she's almost 80 years old. She's probably one of the most selfless and gracious people I've ever met.
Yeah.
She's also probably the most fearful person I've ever met. So I really think this practice would help her a lot. But every time I send her the videos, she sees the Buddha statue in the back and immediately jumps to a conclusion that I'm joining a cult.
Yeah.
And that, we sit here around and praise the Buddha statue for an hour.
Yeah.
So you could just say to the camera that that's not what we're doing.
Yeah. Is she watching right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I really think.
Evan, what's your mom's name?
Mary.
Mary. I'm just a Jewish kid. That might make it worse, actually, doesn't it?
No, that won't make it worse.
That doesn't make it
That won't
worse.
make it worse.
All right. I'm just a Jewish kid. My mother's proud of me. My rabbi's proud of me. Nobody in here is Buddhist, right? Yeah, it's a great, thank you for sharing that. Oh man, so many things I could say to this, but let me, I'll kind of sum up like, I mean, even I think at the very beginning, right? I mean, have you sent her these and has she actually watched these?
I got her to watch one. I sent her a bunch of times, but I was home a week ago.
Yeah.
And me and my wife were there. We got her to watch one. And obviously I had to fast forward at the beginning.
Yeah. She saw the bowing. Yeah, that's actually what I was going to talk about right now. So, Mary, this is for you, right? Yes, absolutely. No pressure or anything. But so at the very beginning, and I do talk about this a lot. So it's good kind of, new year, new start. A lot of people are kind of, setting things up in their own ways. That very beginning when we take refuge, and I do talk about this a lot. So the fact that I'm saying it now is not that big of a deal. But when we take refuge, right, in what's called taking refuge in the triple gem at the beginning, and I walk in and you see me kind of joining my palms and bowing and all those kinds of things. Let me explain what that means, not just for Mary, your mother, but for everybody here who's never heard this or forgets. Let's first look at the word taking refuge. What does refuge mean? Just shout out some things when you hear the word refuge. Safety, what else? Comfort, shelter. Anything else? Peace, right? So safety, comfort, shelter, protection, home. First, look at the word refuge, and refuge means different things to different people. So it's important to understand what refuge means to you. Then you look at, okay, what are we taking refuge in? The first thing we say is we're taking refuge in the Buddha. So on the surface, yes, we've just said I'm taking refuge in the Buddha. Some dude with a shaved head is bowing. I mean, imagine if I was still wearing robes and had incense and doing full prostrations and everything. That would freak her out completely, right? So when we take refuge in the Buddha, we are not taking refuge in the Buddha himself. He died 2,500 years ago. He was just a dude. He wasn't a god. He was very clear he wasn't a god. He didn't want people to worship him or praise him or anything like that. When we take refuge in the Buddha, well, we're actually taking refuge in what's called bodhicitta, which literally translates to Buddha nature. So when we take refuge in the Buddha, it represents taking refuge in the Buddha nature that is within all of us. And what that means specifically is, as the Buddha taught, we all have the ability to awaken, meaning we all have the ability to suffer, right? Again, Mary can't see the 65 people, whatever it is in the room, but no one in here, other than maybe one person and another person who's not sure, is Buddhist. The people in this room are Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Jewish, pagan, Mormon, or lack thereof. People don't come here to be Buddhist. We don't try to make them Buddhist. The Dalai Lama was asked, does this country need more Buddhists? And he said, the world has enough Buddhists. This country just needs more people who are peaceful and happy. But I'll come back to the religious side in a minute. So it's not about being Buddhist, but we're taking refuge in this idea that we all can suffer less regardless of what our religious views are. And so that's what taking refuge in the Buddha, bodhicitta, Buddha nature is all about. As I said, he died. Right? He lived till 80. He was just some dude. He was a prince. He left home, roamed the base of the Himalayan mountains for 6 years, and he taught a simple, peaceful life for 45 years before he died at the age of 80. And here we are 2,500 years later, millions of people still studying, looking at, practicing what he taught as a simple philosophy and way of life. Is it practiced religiously? Yes, I'll talk about that in a minute, probably. But this idea that we can suffer less is really what that practice is about, of taking refuge in the Buddha. As I always say, he can't help you. So if you're looking for him, like the image of looking at these Buddhas and bowing and things like that, it seems like we're looking at them, that we're worshiping them or praising them. But when I bow to the Buddha, I'm really just bowing to the Buddha nature that's within me. And if I'm waiting for the Buddha to come back and save me, fix me, heal me, help me, I'm going to be waiting a long time because he's dead. He cannot help me at all, right? Second one is the Dharma. We're taking refuge in the Dharma. Dharma literally means, it translates to truth, but it's not truth spoken by the Buddha. Again, he wasn't a God requiring you to believe in him. He actually said, listen to what I'm saying and practice it. Put it into practice. If it works for you, great. Keep doing it. If it doesn't, then abandon it. So he wasn't wanting you to have blind faith and belief in him. He said, try this stuff. If it works, great. If not, abandon it. Dharma is referred to as the teachings of the Buddha. So all the things we look at, loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom, all these loving, kind, beautiful words that, oh, by the way, exist in pretty much every religion out there. That's what we're looking at. That's what we're finding safety in, protection, comfort, hope. I know if I'm an angry, pissed off, you know what, life is going to be hell. If I'm a happy, kind, gentle person and I treat people that way, life's going to be much better. So I'm finding comfort, safety, and protection that if I think kind thoughts and speak kind words and do good deeds, that my world around me is going to be kinder and gentler. That's the practice. That is the Dharma. That's what I'm taking refuge in. But again, it comes back to me having to do it. The third one is the Sangha, the community of people. At the time of the Buddha, it was, the monks and then the nuns and the lay people. So they took safety, comfort, protection, and the people that they practiced with together as a community. And so fast forward to today, 2,500 years later, people come together in this type of setting to do meditation, look at Buddhist teachings. This is the Sangha, the community. They challenge you. They hold you accountable. They create opportunities for you to practice. They question you, meaning where are you at on your path and on your practice? Are you miserable? Why? Are you happy? Why? So for me, Sangha it's a motivator, right? I mean, if I didn't have you all to show up to week in and week out for the last 19 years, I'd probably be in jail right now. And I say that very serious, or dead, like truly. So for me, Sangha is a place to hold myself accountable to. It's people to practice with. And so I find safety, comfort, protection in the community of people that come together because we're all struggling. Regardless of what reasons we struggle, we're struggling. And that's true for anybody from any religion. Now, I like to look at Sangha not just, as I often joke, right? Everyone in here, anyone ever screamed and yelled and cussed at anybody in here? Probably not, right? Maybe once, I don't know. Did you, Paula? No. You got a big smile on your face, so I don't know. But the people out there that are in traffic that you're putting, your middle finger up to, the people that you're online, on the phone with customer service yelling at, the people who are checking you out at Starbucks and you're mad at them, they're also sitting in this room right now. That's these people. So if you can be kind and gentle to all the people in here, to me, Sangha is not just about being in a meditation Buddhist place, right? Everywhere you are, traffic is your Sangha. Family at home that drives you crazy is your Sangha, right? Grocery stores, coffee shops, these are your communities. Can you treat them with as much kindness and gentleness as you are in here? Because to a lot of you, the people in here, you don't know them, but they're the person you were mad at because they made your latte the wrong way this morning, So when we take refuge in Sangha, that's the community. And I want to come back briefly to this piece since I'm kind of on this, trail. When the Buddha taught, again, he was Hindu. And so Buddhism didn't exist. He was asked, I think, 14 questions he wouldn't answer. And they said, should we believe in gods and goddesses? At the time, the Hindu gods and goddesses, endless. And he said, if you believe in them, you do. If you don't, you don't. Meaning, he wasn't there to tell them what or who to believe in. He was there to teach them a simple, kind, gentle way of life. And you fast forward to today, I love Reverend Penny Bridges. She's the head reverend at St. Paul's Cathedral down the street, Episcopalian Church. And she, when we accepted the Light of Pride Award a couple of years ago, she said from St. Paul's Cathedral in San Diego Pride, she said that there are many people in her church who are better Episcopalians because of their time at the Dharma Bum Temple. And another friend of mine years ago said, who's Catholic, a devout Catholic, her Catholic faith is incredibly important to her. And her time learning about meditation and Buddhism, she said, actually made her a better Catholic. She considered it like a software upgrade, that it actually brought her closer to her Catholic faith because she became kinder and gentler to herself. She began to love herself more. She began to forgive herself more and others. And that connected her closer on a spiritual path to her religious belief. So from the Buddhist lens of things, like I said, have all your beliefs that you have or not. That's completely up to you. People in the West tend to practice Buddhism as a philosophy and a way of life. The flip side is it is also one of the world's oldest, largest religions. So if you go into what I call cultural temples, right? You go into a Lao, a Cambodian, a Thai temple, Vietnamese, Japanese, Taiwanese temple. You go into all these cultural temples. Don't show her videos of that because it looks like Catholic Church with the bowing, all the rituals, all the incense, all the robes, all the chanting, right? It looks religious. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple to kind of strip all of that out and just stick to what are the core teachings? What did the Buddha actually teach about being kinder and gentler people? And that's all that really matters. But I always say that piece about religion because for most Western people who come here, a lot of people come here like, yeah, religion's not for me. So I'm going to get into Buddhism because it's a philosophy and way of life. You can call it whatever you want. Nobody really cares. But don't go to the Buddhist temple down the street and tell them this isn't religion, it's a philosophy and way of life. It'd be kind of like going to the Catholic Church and saying this isn't religious. So I think it's important to have tremendous respect and reverence to the historical nature of Buddhism, for 2,500 years. But so I hope that helps, Mary. Yes. What else?
I have a little story to tell, and it's based on what I initially said, that I come here so that I can change the way I react to external situations. On Tuesday, a group of us went to prison, and before we went in, we decided that let's talk about the difficulties that these people are having over the holidays, because it's a stressful time for people. And so we opened it up and said, all right, this got to be really hard for you. You're separated from your friends and family. And the conversation took a turn that was really unexpected. They started talking about the friendships that they had. They started talking about the kindnesses that other people had done. And suddenly the teachers become students, and they're teaching you that in a situation that I think most of us would find very difficult, they've been able to find some sense of community. They've been able to perform acts of generosity. And, as one of the men said, we're not what the government labels us. I think some people say we're not, defined by the worst thing that we've ever done. So they've learned how to react in positive ways in a difficult situation. Which for me, is what this is all about.
Yeah, definitely. So. Thanks, Mike. What else?
Jeff, many times you ask the question why people who keep coming every year. And my answer was for no reason. And it wasn't a flippant answer.
Oh, yeah.
I was being serious.
I know.
Because on Sundays we have to learn, and what we learn nothing to achieve. Especially for older persons who's retired. I could take a satisfaction saying, I'm just here. There's nothing for me to, I might read just because I'm curious, but not that I'm going to get nirvana or anything. So, I don't see, is my thinking wrong in that area?
I think that there's this idea about the reasons we come here, the reasons we practice. I used to say years ago, I still think it a lot, but I say it often, or I don't say it as often, that to me, when I look at just core basic Buddhist teachings, loving kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, things like that, some people just have that. It's just who they are. It's just how they are. Some people, not so much. Some people have to work really hard at it, at being, that loving, kind, compassionate person, at being nice, at being, forgiving, at listening. Some people have to work really hard at that. I'm just talking about myself here, right? And so I believe that there's a place in our lives with any sort of spiritual practice where we just show up because we know we should just show up, and it doesn't become as difficult anymore. There's no big reason as to why you're doing it. It's just what you do. It's who you become. Some people are just kind, wonderful, gentle people, and some people are not. And that's just life. And the practice is to work on being kind, gentle, wonderful people, at the same time, not judging or critiquing yourself if you have moments of, not being so kind and gentle and wonderful. But it goes back to that story I've told where they interviewed the guy at some Zen retreat, and it was, they asked him, why do you get up at 3:30 in the morning? And got a big smile on his face. And he said, I have no idea. He just did it. It just seemed like a thing to do. So, as I always say, if any sort of path, whether it's Buddhism or whatever religion you look at, if it makes you your spiritual path, if it makes you kinder and gentler and happier, then do it. If it harms you and others, then stop. Easier said than done, of course, but what else? There's a question here. So occasional side effect of meditation, when I enter a quiet state, unexpected epiphany enters my mind. Do we know which came first for the Buddha, the teachings or the meditation? So to clarify, so the word Buddha just means the awakened one. He was just a dude who went on a spiritual journey. After 6 years, he sat down, entered into kind of a deep meditative state. And then when his buddies came back and saw him, they said, there's Siddhartha. It looks like he's figured something out. Let's see what's going on. And as he spoke, they then called him the Buddha, which just means the awakened one. So I think often, we can, even for, Mother Mary, that's the first time this Jewish kid's ever said Mother Mary, I think. But, very often we can get wrapped up in like the word Buddha, because even the word Buddha itself makes it seem like it's this godly figure. You see the image of the happy Buddha, right? The Hotai, the one with the big belly, which isn't the Buddha, by the way. He was just a monk in China named Hotai about 1,000 years ago. So it's kind of like finding out Santa Claus isn't real, or the Easter Bunny, if you don't know that by now. The big bellied Buddha guy is not the Buddha. His name was Hotai. He was a monk in China 1,000 years ago. He had always carried a bag of stuff, was very prosperous, very lucky, was always giving out gifts. Sound familiar? So a lot of people, Western culture, they kind of call that the happy Buddha, the big bellied Buddha. He was just a monk. Nothing, I don't mean just a monk, but he was a monk. And so we hear this word, the Buddha, we see these images, and I think that often plays this mystical God, almost like feeling to it all. But coming back to the question, so Siddhartha, the question is, what came first, the teachings or the meditation? I don't know specifically that it is even necessarily for me as a practitioner important to say which comes first. I think they happen hand in hand. And you look at the Buddha's life as he roamed the Himalayan mountains for 6 years, he had different teachers along the way. So he learned stuff. He learned teachings. He practiced meditation. They were kind of hand in hand together. And so I think the cultivation of a meditation practice informs the teachings, and the teachings inform the meditation practice. I love what Alex years ago used to say about the precepts, kind of moral, ethical conduct and behavior within our lives. And he said that, precepts should not be forced into one's life. That as you practice and cultivate a deeper spiritual journey, then these precepts just begin to occur in your life. So if we cultivate a spiritual journey, then the chances are we're going to be kinder and gentler and harm people and places and things less. And as Karma Leksha used to say, an angry person who meditates is just an angry meditator. So I think as for us as a practitioner, you know, or learning about meditation in Buddhism, it's not so important to look at which one comes first or which is more important. I think that they're both equally important. When we sit in meditation, to sit in meditation, and when we practice the teachings, to practice the teachings and see how they play together. Yeah. What else?
I think what you just said is kind of similar to the idea of why he didn't actually, there's no like Bible or whatever in Buddhism, like, because everybody was taught, or a lot of people were taught different things because of their causing conditions in their lives. And, you know, so like teachings are kind of fluid, dependent on the individuals. And that's why you kind of, as you mentioned before, take it or leave it, sort of.
Well, not really.
You know?
I mean, I hate to like crush you because I like you and all, but he was pretty, I mean, he was pretty clear in what he taught, and it was written down. So it's different than the Bible in a sense that, again, I don't get into like kind of comparative religious stuff, but I'll just say this. He said, take it or leave it, meaning if it works, try it. If not, abandon it. But he wasn't saying change it. He was very clear on what he said. It was memorized. It was all recorded and written down in what's called the sutras. So the word sutra means thread. So it was an oral transmission of the teachings. So when they came together 50 to 100 years later, roughly, and I'm not a scholar, but around that time, after he passed away, they came together at a Buddhist council and said that was some pretty good stuff that he taught. You know, again, I'm paraphrasing. And we should write it down. So that's where they transcribed what, and they memorized like word for word what he said for years. So it wasn't fluid, as you say, the teachings were pretty cut and dry, pretty concrete. But it wasn't like you were going to hell if you didn't abide by something that he said. It was just said, here's the teachings, practice them or don't practice them. But yeah, they were all recorded. Initially, when they wrote them down, they wrote them on palm leaves. That's how they transcribed them. So yeah, pretty direct.
Could I add to that?
Please.
Initially, they were memorized for hundreds of years, and that used to be tradition in India because a lot of things had been memorized. Writing wasn't really prevalent around the time. So around first AD or somewhere around there, that century, I think this was written down first time in Sri Lanka. So that's why the old, you know,
the Pali Canon.
Pali Canon was from Sri Lanka. So initially, for hundreds of years, they were memorized and they were very accurately transmitted generation. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Normal. And that's why when you read the sutras, you know, just Google Pali Canon, the website Access to Insight, it's all there. And it's, like I said, pretty concrete. And the sutras start out something to the effect of, thus have I heard at such and such time, at such and such place, the Buddha once said. So it is a retelling of what the Buddha said, but they're not messing with it. You know, they're not like, you know, they're not changing it. It's then obviously been translated over the years into, you know, multiple languages. But still, there's a lot of credit given to a handful or less of translators who really did a, you know, pretty accurate job at translating the sutras. So what else? Thoughts or questions? We'll do one more, I think, before we close.
Is Buddha saying anything about forgiveness, or what do you have to say about it?
Yeah.
I just, honestly, I'm trying to teach my son, my 23-year-old son, about forgiveness, and I think maybe your words.
Sure. Yeah. So the question was, for those virtually maybe didn't hear it, you know, the Buddhist teachings around forgiveness, or, you know, my personal thoughts on forgiveness, and you're trying to teach your son, 23-year-old son, about forgiveness. So I was taught, Master Xingyun, first Buddhist master, and then Venerable Yizhur, what I was taught from them around forgiveness was to really look at three things to bring into my life as a practitioner when we do things that require forgiveness, right? And at that stage of my life, there was a lot of them, right? And so they taught to do three things. One when you do something that harms someone, and there's some things I'll add to this at the end, but when you do something that harms someone, to apologize very genuinely. And if it was something that, you know, I mean, for your 23-year-old kid, he's probably not looking back at what he did 20 years ago. But, you know, for those of us who are not 23, right, maybe we harmed somebody 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago. And all of a sudden we're sitting in some meditation Buddhist class and we're like, you know, recognizing we caused harm and we want to go back 20 years and apologize to the person's heart we broke or whatever. They're probably over it, have probably moved on and really don't want to hear from us right now. Right. So if that's not the case, meaning if it's not possible to necessarily apologize to them, then apologize to someone you know you're close with, but sincerely, you know. So I'd be like, Matt, look, I'm really sorry for what I did to that person 30 years ago. That was really just terrible. But genuinely apologize, like feel it. The pain that we put them through, the pain that we felt, that what was going on that led us to do things that harm somebody else. Like really genuinely own that apology. Again, if it's present and relevant, then apologize to the person. If that's going to maybe make things worse or, you know, isn't possible, then apologize elsewhere. The second thing is to recognize that what we did wasn't in line with the practice of loving kindness and compassion, with the Dharma, with these teachings, right? I mean, there's nothing in these teachings that say go out and harm people at all, or animals or anyone for that matter. Right? So recognize that what we did that caused harm is different from what we are now looking at doing, which ultimately is to cause no harm, to self or others. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, which they're all important, but to me is the most important, is the vow to not do it again. And this ties into a piece I'm going to talk about forgiving ourselves. But the third part is to vow to not do it again. Right? You ever done anything that really harmed somebody and said, I'm never doing that again? Ever seen the movie Trainspotting? Right? Another story for another day. But vow to not do it again. Because, you know, maybe in our lives we've done certain things that harmed others and we're like, I'm never doing that again. And then there we are 6 months later doing this, or 6 days later, or 6 minutes later, doing the same thing again. So you make that vow that says, I vow truly to not do this anymore, because I don't want to harm anybody else, especially doing the same thing that I just did that I already know harmed someone else prior, right? And this piece, I think, carries on to, does that make sense so far, those 3 steps? It carries on to, I think, very often, especially for, you know, young individual, but for everybody. Anyone here still feel guilty and shame for things they've done in their lives, right? I mean, I'm sure all of us. Can you change any of that? No. And if you spend your whole life hating yourself for all the things that you've done wrong, you're going to spend your whole life hating yourself. And when you hate yourself, how do you tend to act? Mean. So then you just perpetuate that cycle. I hate myself for things I've done in the past. Therefore, I'm going to continue to hate myself. Therefore, I'm going to continue to do things that cause more pain because I hate myself. And then that vicious cycle just does not stop. So the practice is to recognize, to have forgiveness for the self, right? So you don't keep doing the same things over and over again, but not so quickly. What I mean by that, I'll tell this short story and then we'll close, is years ago, I tell the story often, but there was a woman came in and finished meditation and, you know, hand went up right away. I mean, I hadn't even said, does anyone have questions? And the hand went up already. And she said, my wife's really mad at me, just dropped me off and she's really mad at me. And I said, and she said, I'm trying to learn to be okay with her being mad at me. And I kind of paused and I said, well, did you do something that made her mad? And she said, yeah. And I said, okay, so you did something that made her mad and you're trying to be okay with her being mad at you. So she kind of was using this whole forgiveness thing to spin it around and make it all about her. Often we do things that harm people. We immediately want forgiveness without even looking at what we just did. Like maybe we should own what we did a little bit longer, not quickly, you know, look for forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't excuse the actions, right? Me looking for forgiveness for self or others doesn't excuse past harm that I've done. But it helps me learn to be at peace with the fact that I have to forgive myself And if others forgive me, that's up to them. But as you know, you've done things in the past and you want people to forgive you. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But can we forgive ourselves, but also still own our actions? Because if we don't own them, we kind of just dismiss them, sweep them under the rug, and then we're probably more likely to continue to do them again. I think, Buddhist kind of very core teachings of having compassion for self and others is really the foundation of that. Can I have love and compassion for myself, to forgive myself for all the harmful things I've done, and have the wisdom, as the Buddha taught, to not do them anymore? Because you don't want to cause harm to self or others anymore. So, all right, so I'm going to close on that. We'll join palms. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. And before y'all head out, our Dharma Bum host, Ann, has a few announcements for us. And as Ann's coming up, just real quickly, we are looking for a couple volunteers downstairs at Buddha for You, Saturdays and Sundays from noon to 3. So if you want to kick your year off and do some volunteer activity, Maggie's downstairs. You can go chat with her, but we'd love to help. And if 2 people want to stay and help me weed out front, let me know afterwards if you want to do 20 minutes of weeding.
Hello, everyone. I'm today's host, Ann. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, masters, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They are simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. The full schedule is on our website and also posted in the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it, then bring it back whenever you are done with it. Please straighten your seat or cushion before you head out. Thank you for being here. We wish you all well and hope to see you all again.
Thanks, Ann.